Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. My name is Ryan, and I am your host. We've got an interesting show today, maybe a little off directly reselling, but it's an interesting article that I stumbled on because I spend far too much time on the internet about whether or not our side hustles, for those of us who are doing things as side hustles, are actually profitable, beneficial, or good uses of our time. So that's what we're going to dive into today. First, let me get over here into the chat and say some good mornings. Mel, good morning. Good to see you. Then Degore Depot, good morning. Lots of Seller Hub changes. Yes, and more to come. There was an announcement I saw posted this morning that there are more to come, and they are soliciting feedback for what those changes may be. So it has been very busy over at eBay. Yet once again, I don't have an opinion yet on what the changes look like and whether they're beneficial or not, but definitely more change coming. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning. Good to see you. Big Dre, hello. Meaty Picker, Brandon, good morning. What a day on hold with insurance, currently for 110 minutes. Ouch. And while on hold, my dog crapped all over the house. There you go. That's a Monday, not a Wednesday. Carla, welcome. Thanks for coming out. So like I said, I spend far too much time on the internet, and I've got some alerts set up for things related to reselling and that sort of thing. And this article popped up, and I thought it would be something that would be fairly interesting to look at. So let's just get dived in here. This appeared over on a website called Killer Startups. This is side hustles are quietly making millennials poorer. Here's the hidden math that nobody talks about. Scroll through TikTok and you'll find 1,000 tutorials on how to monetize your downtime. Drive a few rides before work, flip furniture on Facebook Marketplace, drop ship dog sweaters at lunch. Easy money, right? Yet, when researchers at MarketWatch crunched real gig platform data, they found the median side hustler clears only about $250 a month before taxes or mileage deductions. That's barely the cost of 2 tanks of gas in many cities. The hidden bite comes at tax time. Anything over $400 net triggers the full 15.3% self-employment tax, plus quarterly estimated headaches that many first-timers overlook. Stack state income tax and platform fees on top, and that extra $250 starts looking like $150 or less. Covering bills, not building wealth. Millennials aged 28 to 43 logged the most side hours of any generation. Bankrate's 2024 survey pegs the group average hustle income at $1,129 a month, yet 36% say the money only pays routine bills and debt. The net upshot is the gig keeps the lights on, but it isn't moving the net worth needle, which is one of the reasons most people, not all, but a lot of people would start a side hustle. In February of 2025, the same firm released its annual emergency savings report. Millennials were the cohort most likely to raid or completely empty their rainy day fund in the past year, despite all that extra income. The money comes in and it leaks out just as fast. Why? Irregular earnings tempt irregular spending. Psychologists call it the money illusion. When cash lands unpredictably, we mentally tag it as play money and loosen the budget. By contrast, even modest, steady paychecks nudge people to plan. The platform fee sinkhole. This is the one that probably applies to resellers directly. Hidden costs are everywhere. A 2024 study of rideshare drivers found net wages plunged once researchers factored in fuel, depreciation, insurance, and unpaid wait time. Many drivers clocked 50 plus hours just to match the take home of a 40-hour retail job with benefits. For delivery and resale gigs, fees nibble at every stage. We are very aware of that as resellers. Listing charges, payment processor percentages, and boost fees, promoted listings, and that sort of thing to push your item up the algorithm. Add shipping or fuel, not to mention supplies, and you're sometimes paying the platform to let you work. It's freelancing in reverse, the article says. Burnout, the overdraft you can't see. Money isn't the only ledger that bleeds. Business Insider's March 2025 profile of an overemployed millennial making $280K across 2 jobs, that's rough, reads like a cautionary medical chart: migraines, insomnia, and a therapist on speed dial. Not a trade I would be willing to make. One of the reasons I got out of traditional workforce was because I wanted to dial all that back. A month earlier, Business Insider chronicled a tech worker hospitalized after juggling a day job and a midnight startup. Extreme cases, sure, but surveys echoed the pattern. Deloitte's 2024 Millennial and Gen Z report shows more than half of millennials still feel financially insecure and chronically stressed despite record hustle hours. The grind delivers cash, but invoices the body. Time, the one asset no gig can mint, disappears. A second shift eats evenings, weekends, and relationships. Sleep debt becomes credit card debt in disguise. Only you pay it with productivity, not dollars. Federal Reserve's reality check: if side gigs truly patched household balance sheets, we'd expect gig workers to be more resilient. The Fed's 2024 survey of household economics and decision making, however, found 38% of gig workers couldn't cover a $400 surprise expense, only a hair better than the national average. Extra income evaporates into everyday costs, and volatility cancels velocity. Bloomberg's 2025 op-ed on the no-buy 2025 trend argues the same leak in different words. Austerity challenges won't fix budgets when variable gig pay is devoured by taxes and platform fees before it ever builds a surplus. The hustle hamster wheel keeps spinning, but the cage, they say, doesn't move. The writer says, my own ledger of regret. Full disclosure, I once Ubered on weekends to annihilate student loan debt. The plan felt brilliant until I penciled out the real return. Gas plus maintenance sliced my hourly rate to $14. Self-employment tax took another bite. A fender bender, uninsured because my personal policy didn't cover commercial driving, swallowed 3 months of profit. By year's end, the loans had barely budged, while my Camry's shocks groaned like an old floorboard. The personal footnote is small, but multiply it by millions, and you see why the side hustle boom isn't translating into millennial wealth. I would argue that could be applied potentially to a lot of folks. The hidden math: everyone skips gross versus net. List your last 3 side gig payouts. Subtract platform fees, mileage or supplies, and the 15.3% tax for self-employment. Surprised? Most people are. You also have other costs. Opportunity costs. Every Saturday spent delivering groceries is a Saturday not spent up skilling into a higher paying main job. Hour for hour, a certificate course in data analytics may beat another delivery shift long run. A volatility premium: irregular income should command a higher hourly rate because it carries more risk. Most gigs don't pay that premium. They rely on workers absorbing it. And the burnout bill: track your sick days, skipped workouts, or takeout meals ordered because you were too tired to cook. Those line items belong on the ledger too. When you account for each, many hustles fall below minimum wage. So what now? He concludes, I'm not here to shame the weekend bartender or the Etsy printmaker whose side passion sparks joy and sales. Purpose matters. But if the goal is long-term financial lift, the numbers deserve daylight. Run a true P&L. Something I talk about pretty regularly is knowing your numbers, doing the accounting on at least a fairly regular basis to know if you are in fact making money or not. Separate your business checking, log every expense, and bank 30% for taxes. Price your time at its future value. If your core career could pay $40 an hour after one certificate, but your gig pays $15, choose learning over lugging. Lobby for platform fairness, transparent fee schedules, minimum per order pay, mileage reimbursement. These are policy fights, not personal budgeting hacks, he goes on. Seek benefits, not just dollars. A single W-2 job with health insurance can beat 2 1099 gigs by thousands in hidden costs. The side hustle boom isn't a moral failing. It's supply and demand meeting wage stagnation, but personal finance with honest math, and the math on many gigs is uglier than the influencer highlight reel suggests. And I've talked about that with some regularity, just in general with reselling. A lot of YouTube gurus, YouTube resellers make it look so easy and so profitable. They share their big wins and their big scores. I do the same. I only share, the highlight reel. But it is not that easy, and it is not always that profitable. And not taking a full look at it can give one a misleading picture of just how great this is. Now, that being said, I still think it's great. Most of us are still making okay money. We enjoy the flexibility that we get out of it and all the rest of that. But it is important to be aware of kind of the costs and the actual financial situation. The bottom line, the article concludes side hustles promise millennials freedom and extra cash. Too often, they deliver fatigue, paperwork, and a bank balance stuck in neutral. The stories and data all point in one direction. Without ruthless cost accounting, the hustle can quietly make you poorer. Maybe 2025 is the year we swap rise and grind for pause and audit. The smartest hustle might be making your primary income and your health work a little better before renting out every spare minute to someone else's algorithm. So, really interesting article, I thought. You can let me know in the chat what you think. I suppose some of you have, so let's get in here and take a look. Let me blow this up so I can actually see these. Mary McQuain, good morning. Thanks for coming out. Den Decor Depot, the article completely overlooks the fact that you can write off a lot against that 250. Modern public education teaches nothing about using business to benefit you, the individual. And that is true. There are, obviously, he talked about mileage deductions and expenses. There is that factors into the calculation. But I don't think, and again, I don't want to characterize with a broad brush the millennials, but millennials and or a lot of casual resellers don't really fully do that math, don't fully do the counting. We talked about it at tax time. People get to tax time and then they break out the shoebox full of receipts and they really don't know if they've made money or not until the bitter end when the taxes come due. There is the consideration of the quarterly tax payments, of the self-employment tax if you've made over a certain amount. So there's a lot to kind of factor in. If you're getting joy out of it and you're having fun, whether it's sourcing stuff and flipping it on eBay or Depop or whatever, or you're creating digital journals or art or whatever that you're selling on Etsy or some other site, and that is something that you enjoy doing, there's obviously a psychic benefit. But a lot of people are just, I saw someone on Facebook today talking about they're just tired of the hustle of, running to the thrift store and running to the bins. And if it ceases to be enjoyable and it's also not profitable, it might be time to take a look at something else. Recommerce Dave, good morning. Good to see you. Den Decor Depot, every modern college business program are geared to employment in corporations. The entire, not to get too far off on a tangent, the entire United States educational system is built around making people employable for the most part. The regimented design of that education is to make us not be able to necessarily think critically, but to be able to fit into those holes where employers want us to be. So gig economy with proper education and owning a business could revolutionize our economy like labor unions in the 19th century. And I think that goes back to the point of knowing where you're at with these things. I think the point is very valid. If say you're a tech worker and getting another certificate may take you, 6 months of time, but it allows you to get a better job or get an increase at your current job because you have that certification. Over the long run, that may be a better use of your time than trying to flip stuff on eBay. Again, that's a decision that every individual has to make. But I think the point of the article is that too many people are caught in the trap of thinking, oh, I'll do this side thing and that's going to solve all my financial problems. And the data appears to show that it isn't actually doing that. So Pixel Tail, good morning. Thank you for coming by. Black Cat Flips, welcome. Sure, I can go back and make more money at my company, but I was doing a job that was making me miserable. That's not good either. And that's the point I made. That's why I left the rat race of retail management and then auto sales. I wanted control of my time. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed and got some psychic or spiritual satisfaction out of. And the money was kind of secondary. Obviously, we got to make money. We've all got bills to pay. But it wasn't the primary driver for me, and sounds like for you as well. So there are all those other considerations. If you like doing the side hustle, you like doing the Uber, you like doing the Etsy, whatever it is, the money may not be the big deal, but a lot of these folks have kind of fallen into the trap of thinking it is easy and super profitable. And that just unfortunately isn't always the case. And a lot of them aren't even aware of it until it's too late. Black Cat Flip says, good morning, by the way. What else have we got here? Yes. And the Kapow Eagle, welcome. Good morning. Great topic during these slow selling times, giving us time to rethink our business style and accounting methods. Absolutely. We talked about kind of at the turn of the year, I was seeing a lot of sellers that were making decisions about either categories they wanted to sell in or platforms that they wanted to continue to sell on, and really refocusing their attention on the things that were serving them best. And this is kind of a similar topic. Periodically, we have to evaluate whether things are working for us. Full disclosure, I'm in the process of doing that right now. There'll probably be a video upcoming on some changes I may be making as well. So stay tuned for that. If you're not currently a subscriber, that's a good reason to sign up. You've got to constantly, at least maybe every 6 months, if not every quarter, take a good look at what you're doing with your business or with your life or your relationships or whatever it is, and really think about, are those things continuing to serve you well? And if not, what you might need to do to make a change. As the writer in the article pointed out, sometimes it's hard to get off the hamster wheel. You get in and you get going, and there's a certain amount of inertia and familiarity with doing a thing the way we've always done it, at the time we've always done it, and taking that step back to say, gosh, is this whatever? Is this activity? Is this going out with my friends every Wednesday night for music trivia? Is whatever it is that really the most beneficial use of my time? And again, that is a consideration I am currently in the process of going through. Mel Flips It says, it's all nuanced. My area is rural and poor. I have an AS and paraprofessional cert. The wage is low compared to reselling, and I just started Uber DoorDash, where the small town is a benefit for mileage. And again, that's a perfect example of an area where there are some challenges and some opportunities, and the decisions that you make would maybe be different than someone in a larger or more affluent area. So knowing, your area, your role, what it is you want to do, what is going to work and what isn't, is super beneficial. And again, I think a lot of people don't do maybe the due diligence on the research. They see someone on TikTok or on YouTube that's like, reselling is great, or being an influencer is great. I've got a friend, to just get off on a tangent, whose daughter is married to someone who just up and decided to leave his job, and that he was going to make his money as a YouTuber. He had no experience on YouTube, didn't have a channel, nothing, just decided, I'm going to quit and become a YouTuber. It looks like you can make a lot of money. Of course, he is not, which is a constant source of drama for both my friend and his daughter, because they are now a one-income household. So again, you go down that rabbit hole and things look easy and super profitable, and then you get into them and you find out, ooh, gosh, no, that is not the case. Is this where we mention whatnot? It might be, Dave. It might be. I've given it a very fair shake over there, and I have some thoughts that I'll probably be sharing maybe next week. Maybe that'll be the topic for next Wednesday's live. Cameron D, welcome. The broader your education and worldview, the more adaptable you can be to circumstances. That's the whole benefit of getting a full education. Absolutely. And continuing to do that. One of the reasons we all come here and go on YouTube and do whatever Facebook groups or whatever we do, is to continue to learn. You should always be open to new things and to learning new things. And the better equipped you are to do that, the better equipped you are to handle any challenges that would come at you. So yeah, 100% agree with that. Dendicor Debo says, come on, you can't tease like that. I wanted to pick your brain to see where you're looking at growth in your business. I'm seeing where I can attack from some different areas. And again, to be fair, it goes back kind of to what I said a couple of minutes ago. Doing an evaluation of the things that are serving you well, the time that you're investing and the effort into those various things, and then maybe making decisions on, I'm investing X amount of time in this thing for this amount of return. And as I say pretty regularly here, sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze and it's time to make a change. So, yeah, you can let me know. Is that a process that you're going through with your business right now? Are you looking to make some changes in what you're doing? Obviously, Den Decor Depot, we've talked pretty much throughout this year about changes that you've made in your business with decisions that you're making, adjustments and new plans and so on. So I'm going to do one kind of shameless plug here. Let's get into this. Can I do this? I'm all out of whack here, but I have set up one of the eBay ambassador stores. So this is part of their affiliate program. It's a new thing. I set this up a couple of weeks ago. If you would like to support the channel and you need shipping supplies, I have created this little eBay storefront, which is separate from my regular. It's an eBay partner program. So it's like an affiliate program where I have essentially curated a list of the various items and suppliers that I personally use, that I've had really good luck with, either the seller and or the merchandise. So the boxes, the bubble wrap, the mailers, in terms of either price or performance or value or all three. So if you are in need of some supplies and you would like to support the channel, you can. There is a link in the show notes in the video description down below. It's a strange, what is it? eBay/INF, I think. Let me do this so I can get it to you exactly. Yeah. INF/Galaxy CDs Rocks. So there are, I don't know, 13 different links there for various things that you could purchase, and the channel gets a little bit of a kickback. So I would appreciate that. If you are in need of some supplies, that would be helpful, in addition to your undying love and devotion and the likes and the shares and all the other things that everybody does. I appreciate it very much. But if that is something that you're able to do, I would very much appreciate it. Let's get back here into the chat. Den Decor Depot says you have to evaluate at minimum quarterly, if not monthly. I changed up eBay to a markdown sale and a split on dynamic promoted listings, 12% under 20 and 8% above 20, and it's working well. So there you go. Again, making those, none of that happens if you're not paying attention to what's going on in your business. And I know I harp on that. I probably sound like a broken record about, doing the accounting and looking at on a regular basis, maybe not daily, maybe not weekly, but like you say, at least once a month or once a quarter, and deciding, is this campaign really beneficial? Are these levels of discounts? Is that level of promoted listing, is selling on platform A, B, or C really a productive use of my time, or would it be better spent elsewhere? I kind of went round and round with that, even, early on with the YouTube channel. It reached a point where I took a pretty long hiatus because it wasn't bringing me a lot of joy, and the channel certainly doesn't make a lot of money. And it was, it was small. There was nobody here, nobody was watching. It was a pretty frustrating experience. And I had to take a step back, realign my priorities, remember why I was here, even trying to do this. And then I was able to kind of reset and come back in with like a fresh mindset and make this thing work. And now, we're all here, and it's great. I love it. And, but you have to do that. Got to be willing to step back and say, hey, you know what, this thing that I've always done isn't really working for me anymore. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's going great guns and you double down on it, but you can't make those decisions if you're not like really evaluating your business in a variety of ways, not just always financially. Den Decor Depot says, but I'm not down to barely off-site traffic. The minimum to play is $150 a month. I can't do that. Shopify and my own ad spend is my next target. Definitely keep us posted. I've thought about the Shopify thing a couple of times. It would be easy enough to do through List Perfectly. Shopify is one of the options, so I could cross post to a Shopify store. driving traffic to that store is the hard part. You either got to spend ads money on Facebook or through Google trying to drive people. And again, I'm not convinced for my business that that would be that I could do that for less than I'm paying in fees, even running promoted listings on the various sites. So I don't know if you're doing Shopify. Let us know in the chat or in the comments if you're catching this on Team Replay, how you're doing with your Shopify store and what are the tools that you're using to drive people to your individual, either your website where Shopify is hosted or to your Shopify store specifically. Because I'd be really curious. It's always kind of on the back of my mind as something that's enticing, but then I think about the effort that would be required to actually get people to go there, and I'm not sure it makes sense for me. eBay is still the king. Listing on eBay is the biggest return for my time versus money. Vendu makes cross-listing to Mercari and Etsy easy for secondary streams. Absolutely. And that's exactly why I use List Perfectly. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago here. Mercari, it is what it is. It's not, I was talking about it on a Facebook group earlier this week. It is consistently among the slowest of my platforms, but it is essentially free to use unless something sells, and then it's 10%. So it's among the cheapest to be on. It doesn't cost me but 10 minutes a day maybe to do the various cross listing from the listings I've already created on eBay. So it makes sense to do, and allows me to make a little bit of extra money. Etsy is probably the big secondary platform for me, although it's been super inconsistent here lately. JD Team Live, hey, I appreciate it. I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I know this is not always the best time of day to be trying to do these, but I appreciate everybody who can come out. Speaking of, let me take a drink here. To be clear, it's just water. I don't have like vodka in here or anything crazy. I've been thinking about potentially doing one or maybe two additional live shows a week at just kind of sporadic times in the morning as I pack and ship stuff. Let me know in the chat or in the comments again if you're watching later. Is that something that you would be inclined once in a while to tune into, just to have a little extra conversation and watch me pack and ship a bunch of stuff? Because again, with some changes that I'm probably going to be making, I'm gonna have the ability to maybe rearrange some equipment. So setting up to do kind of a live show, maybe Mondays and Fridays, just to pack and ship and have a little chat might be something that's in the works if anybody would be interested. Then Decor Deepa says, Mercari has been pretty decent for us this month. Depop has completely died. That's interesting because I talked about, I don't know if it was in the main podcast or in last week's live. I think it was in the main show on Monday. The download rate for Depop is significant through the first quarter of the year. So there are more people signing up to be on Depop, but I'm hearing mixed things from sellers that the business there is not really popping off. Mercari, I've had a few interesting sales and some slightly higher tickets, which has not been my history over there. There were two, I think, in the last What Sold recap, $30 odd and a $52 sale, which is really unusual because for me, Mercari is almost always like the sub $15 stuff. So while the volume has been pretty flat, there have been some pretty decent tickets over there recently. Etsy has been weirdly weekend only sales for us. I can't speak to what's going on over at Etsy. Like 3 weeks ago, I had like 15 sales over there, which doesn't probably sound like a lot, but was way more than my normal. And then last week I had 4. And so far this week it's Wednesday and I don't have any. So it's been super inconsistent over there and hard to put my finger on what would be the cause of that. Cameron D says, after the Poshmark chaos of last year, I'm considering cross-listing to Mercari regardless of the nuisances that might include. People are still kind of up in arms about all of the things going on with Poshmark and the changes they've made with their excessive listing removal tool or policy, whatever you want to call it. So always good Again, especially with a site like Mercari where there's no listing fees, the sale fee is only 10%, so you're paying a little less. The traffic is not there. Some categories obviously are doing better than others. I'm in books and media. I did better when I was listing a lot of CDs and movies than I'm doing listing exclusively kind of books right now. But Mercari can be, I see people all the time that say that's one of their best performing platforms. So clearly it works for some folks. And again, goes to go full circle back around to evaluating the things that are working for you and or maybe are not working for you, and then deciding whether or not you want to continue to sell there. I know a lot of people abandoned Mercari last spring, not this current one, but last year when they made the fee change. And then further, people have left over time just because business has gotten so slow over there that they can't justify the amount of time they're spending working with creating listings for Mercari when the sales are 2, 3, 4 a month. Speaking of platforms that don't have much sales, we'll probably cover this in the Monday episode, but I saw yesterday on Facebook, Liz posted from Value Added Resource that Bonanza is changing their name to lowercase b, capital M Marketplace, B Marketplace from Bonanza. Let me know what you think of that as a marketing device in the chat. I'm gobsmacked. I mean, Bonanza was virtually impossible to find under the name Bonanza, B Marketplace. I can't imagine that anybody is going to Google search B Marketplace. And to make matters worse, it's going to be bmarketplace.co, not .com, because bmarketplace.com was already taken, and whoever owns that domain wanted $95,000 for it, and Bonanza wasn't willing to pay. Yikes. I don't know how they're going to make it. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are in Bonanza with the recently announced fee increase and the now charges for listing over a certain number of items over there. I feel like they're potentially spiraling. I don't want to say down the drain, but they're on the struggle bus, in my opinion. Mel Flipsit says, I think not auto end and delist and offers is paying off. eBay, Mercari, Posh. I niched higher cost items on Poshmark as well now. And I talk about that pretty regularly. That's my pathway on Etsy. It's only kind of the higher dollar items. So knowing kind of the niche that a marketplace fills, Mercari historically for me has been the lower priced items. I send everything over there, but historically it has been better for kind of the value items, where eBay is a little bit of everything and Etsy tends to skew towards a much higher ticket. So Veruca Salty Salt, if I said that right, I think those other sellers are joining Depop. That could very well be. I know I saw a seller today in a Facebook group talking about, again, kind of in reference to the hustle, there are so many more people now trying to do reselling that are chasing kind of the same goods to be able to offer on Depop and Poshmark, that it's gotten harder and harder to source. At least that's what this person was saying. So that could very well be. And again, as existing sellers think about broadening their horizons, selling on other sites to capture additional income opportunities, that may very well be that a lot of that growth is sellers, not buyers, which would lead potentially to any individual seller seeing less sales because there's going to be a lot more competition chasing the same amount of dollars. Lenny K, welcome. First time I've heard you on Mike Metco. Yep, thank you. Been selling on eBay for over 20 years, now looking into a live selling platform. Any info on live selling? You guys are going to make me talk about this, aren't you? Like most platforms, Whatnot in particular is they're growing by leaps and bounds. The platform itself is doing very, very well. Some sellers are absolutely killing it over there, and other sellers are not doing very much business at all. It's hard really to determine what exactly causes one seller's success versus another, because I've popped in and out of probably hundreds of Whatnot shows over the 7 months I've been on and off of Whatnot. And I see some really let's call them unprofessional or just unproduced shows where people are just selling tons and tons of stuff. And I've seen other shows that are high production, good quality merchandise, and there's nobody in the rooms. There's nobody watching the lives. So it is very, very hit or miss how you do over there. I think it depends again on your category, how personable you are, how big a following you may have elsewhere on social media that you can kind of lead into whatnot. Obviously, yeah, again, it is working fantastically well for some sellers, and for other sellers, it's not working very well at all. All I can tell you would be to go give it a try. Like I said, I've been on there for 7 months, and I've started to make some decisions about maybe taking a step back and reevaluating what I'm doing over there to see if maybe there's something else I should be trying, because what I've been doing over the last 3 or 4 months just isn't really working. Carla Kopic, Monday and Friday show editions would be a great idea. Thank you. I appreciate that. BM. Yes. It's interesting. I don't, B choice marketplace. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I don't, yeah. How would you even market that? Like with Bonanza, at least there's stories you could tell, graphics you could use, it's a whatever. There's something there that you could tell a story with. B marketplace. There's just, I don't know what you do with that. I'm not a marketing genius by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't, it's not memorable other than maybe for being so bad. I'm just not sure what your ad campaign, what your marketing campaign, what any of your art or graphics, I just don't know what they look like to communicate that as a site to look for. I just, not to mention that sellers have been mentioning that they're having problems since this introduction. Of course, there are DNS changes happening on the back end with how the site gets redirected and where the site is being hosted, and sellers are having problems with listings and payment types and payment processing. And it's just, I don't, it's like making a change just for the sake of making a change. And I'm confused. Mary McQuain says, I've never bought or sold on Bonanza, but they seem to be making really bad life choices. Yeah, I was over there for, man, probably 4 years, because it is easy to list over there, and it was free for the longest time. Now it's not, so it would be definitely a different equation. But it was free, and it's synced to your eBay store. So if something sold on eBay, it was automatically delisted on Bonanza and vice versa. So it was a very seamless thing to do, to have your listings over there. So once it was initially set up and you had your store set up and you did that first sync for however much merchandise you had to get over there, it was pretty much, you didn't have to touch it other than to go in and process an order. The problem was that it was, for me, with, at the time, 9,000 odd listings, it was literally 1 or maybe 2 sales a month. And there's just no traffic over there. It makes Mercari look like it's going gangbusters. And they haven't, in my opinion, and again, I'm just a guy sitting here in my basement with a science fiction background. I don't feel like they've done anything to improve their traffic to their site, which, yeah, I guess you could make the argument. A lot of these sites are struggling with that, but they're really, really having some trouble. Den Decor Depot says, I've been getting targeted Facebook ads for a new marketplace that's supposedly geared to millennials called Throwback Buys. Interesting. I've not seen that one. We'll have to look them up. Let me know what your thoughts are in the chat. What do you think about all of these new additional, really small, maybe really niche sites, even the ones like Didbit and, those kinds of places? Are those, do you think they're going to work, or is the market already fairly well saturated? Is that kind of first mover thing already done? Is there space for an additional site? I know a lot of people seem to think that, by age demographic, like millennials are more apt to go to Depop than they are to go to eBay. But at what point does it stop being productive to add new sites and to create new, try to reinvent the wheel, doing the same thing that's already being done by more established parties? I'm just curious what people think of that. Den Decor says Bonanza is dead to me. Yep, I think it's dead to a lot of folks, buyers and sellers. It might not be dead to buyers who never even knew it existed. So that's a bit of a tough one, I guess. But uh, again, I hope all of these sites are able to make it, that they find their niche, that they're able to be profitable, that they find, a core of buyers and sellers so that everybody can make money. It just feels like there comes a point where there's too many options, many of which are very difficult to find. Again, to use Bonanza as an example, and they just get lost in the weeds, especially with the 800-pound gorilla that is Amazon, and their Prime days and their Spring days. And I mean, they've got events going on all the time. It just makes it really difficult. There are some changes, speaking of, occurring over at Amazon that we'll be covering in next week's primary podcast with some of the payouts and some of the things that they're going to do. So be on the lookout for that. If you are a seller over there, some changes that may not be the most beneficial. Dave, thank you for the Monday and Friday thing. I appreciate it. Mary McQueen says some of the district platforms are blowing up, like Dibdit, and you have the support of the owners, which typically have a following. That's helpful. I'd seen a video. It looked like it was a little bit older, but it popped up in my feed the other day about sellers complaining about being rejected from district, like they weren't accepting a lot of sellers, and that may be the right thing to do, to kind of curate who they let in and do not let in, to make sure that it's kind of the way they want their platform to be run. But I thought that was a really interesting video. Carla Kopic says it would seem like District has more sellers than actual buyers for its beginning stages. Not sure how much more it will grow. That is a comment that I've heard from a lot of sellers. It's a comment that I've heard a lot about Whatnot as well, that it is a lot of low value stuff where sellers appear to be selling to other sellers, as opposed to actually building a huge customer marketplace. I think Whatnot is probably a lot less so now than it was a couple of years ago. But that's an interesting take. And I've heard the same thing, that it is seller heavy over there. Den Decor Depot says it's oversaturated. I think if Walmart can get to a point where their marketplace to be like eBay, there could be a pretty seismic shift, but the niches will either get absorbed or die off. And I am surprised. There have been a few mergers, like last year when Etsy bought Depop, for instance, where some of the bigger players are gobbling up some of the smaller ones. And at least in theory, allowing them to continue to run as kind of standalone business. It doesn't seem like Etsy has meddled too awful much in what's going on over at Depop. If you sell over there, you can let me know what your thoughts are on that. But it feels like that's been a trend that some of the platforms have missed. eBay has made some purchases as well. It'll be interesting to see, again, if some of the bigger players start to snap up some of these little guys when they've reached a certain level where they've proven either they have a technology that the bigger platform would like. eBay is famous for that. If they see that you have something in your search or something in your payment processing or something in your algorithm that they think would benefit them, they'll buy that company just to get that technology or that software. And then that company just gets absorbed and poof, they're gone. Mary McQueen says definitely they have to constantly find ways to attract buyers who aren't resellers. And again, the only people I hear talking about District are other sellers, and that to me makes me a little nervous as a seller. And again, I hope they're able to make it work and that it's successful. And everything starts off small and has to find. A lot of people did not think Whatnot would ever be a big platform, and now it's one of the fastest growing platforms in reselling. So you got to start somewhere. I'm just concerned that I don't personally see a lot of evidence that they've sorted that piece of it out. Cameron D said, I sat in a new seller meeting on District. They try to discourage getting a store if you don't have a huge following. Right. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, the owners, the founders of District are all YouTube personalities. They have big followings on YouTube and or Instagram. And as I mentioned with Whatnot, it's kind of the same thing. If you can bring your people with you to a new platform, particularly one that maybe is advantageous in terms of fees and the way the thing is set up, that's great. A lot of us aren't really in that situation. Again, to go back to the Shopify thing, setting up a Shopify store, if you've got 100,000 subscribers to your YouTube channel, maybe you can make that make sense. Rather than linking to your eBay store in your YouTube, you link to and send everybody to your Shopify store where you're not paying all those fees. But for those of us who are, sub 3,000 subscribers, sub 1,000 subscribers, sub 1,000 on Instagram that don't have that following, we don't have any way to drive traffic to those sites without paying for advertising. And if you're going to do that, again, this is just me on my soapbox, you might as well just stay on the platforms that you're already on and pay the fees and do the promoted listings and go with a site that already has tens of millions of users. You can let me know if I'm off base with that in the chat. And I know you will. Recommerce Dave says, think it would depend on the product niche you sell and what your target audience is. Rather than cross-listing, it may be easier to simply list certain products on specific platforms. Yeah, if you've got, obviously all the platforms are trying to sell a lot of things. eBay is making a big push in fashion, but they're not really known for that. And if I was a fashion seller, I would absolutely be thinking of Poshmark and Depop before I thought of eBay. And kind of knowing that, and I get this pushback all the time as a bookseller who does not sell on Amazon, knowing where to sell. Why wouldn't you sell there? And I've had that discussion before, why I choose not to. But knowing where those items are the most likely to sell so that you're giving yourself the best chance to succeed obviously makes really good sense, regardless of the category. Then Decor Depot says it all goes back to your time, juice being worth the squeeze. Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you're using like a List Perfectly or a Vendoo, a lot of that automation with the cross-listing reduces the pain and the time that's spent doing those things. Again, I spend maybe 45 minutes to do 10 listings on eBay, and then it takes me less than 10 to also get all of those over to Etsy and to Mercari. So the pain point is very low for me to do that. If you're trying to do all that manually, that math looks very different, particularly on a site like Mercari or Bonanza, where there's just not a lot of traffic and not a lot of sales to justify the amount of time that you're spending over there. Carla Kopic says there were some resellers referring to the district recruiting other sellers that get a % of their sales and so on and so forth, as if it was a pyramid scheme. I think it is. There's some kind of multi-level marketing, if you will. I don't want to call it a pyramid scheme, but I think there are like stacked commissions or advertising rates over there. I've not looked into it a whole bunch, but I have heard that from several different sellers. Chuck Witt says, you get my vote for more Ryan time. Your level-head rapport motivates me to continue listing on eBay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Cameron D agrees with Carla. So yeah, that's to go back to the listing shows or the shipping lives. I may start doing that. Again, they won't be at a particularly scheduled time because sometimes I'm down here shipping at 6:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't expect many people to join me then. Sometimes it's 8:30, 9 o'clock. So another opportunity to just get together and chat, especially on Monday, where most of us will have a lot of stuff potentially to ship and a lot of things maybe to talk about from the weekend. So that might be good. We're at about 50 minutes, so let's give this about 10 more minutes. If there's anything else that has come up in your world of reselling that you'd like to discuss today, let us know in the chat and we'll be happy to discuss it. Again, as always, thank you so much for coming out, spending a little bit of your Wednesday here with me. I appreciate it. I always appreciate the comments and the feedback and the way you guys share what's going on in your businesses that might help other people who are here in the chat or who are watching it later. I think that's incredibly helpful for everybody involved. I was talking about it, might have been on when I was on Mike Metco Meetups show last week. If you haven't watched that, go check that out. You know, even if someone doesn't sell in your category or on the same platforms that you sell from, listening to what those folks do or how they're doing it can trigger some kind of breakthrough for you. You learn something new or unusual or a tactic or a technique that you would like to try on your site. So, you know, that's why I watch and cover a whole variety of different platforms and different sellers and different categories, even if I'm not in them, because there are things that we can all learn that we could apply to our business. And again, to go back full circle, kind of to the beginning, and we should always be learning and always trying to grow to make our businesses better and hopefully more profitable. Recommerce Dave says Whatnot would be similar. It would be trying to find the time slot that your target audience would most likely be online. And that's been one of the things that, like, I'll get on at, you know, randomly 11 o'clock at night, 5:30 in the morning. I realize there are, you know, whatever, just time zone differences, but it doesn't matter what time of day I get on. There are people doing live shows, and there are people in those live shows that I assume are making some purchases. So it's a um, really interesting platform. They're able to capitalize at pretty much all hours of the day and night. I'm sure there are less shows going on in the middle of the night than there are during the day, but I've never gotten on there when there were not shows going on. From my personal experience, when I was doing, what was I doing? Tuesday evening and Friday evening. Friday evening was far and away the best for me since I switched to the mornings. The overall attendance at the shows has been way down, which I kind of anticipated. Sales have also been significantly down. So it's been a real interesting learning experience for me over on Whatnot. Dan DeCordibo asks, has anyone had success with Whatnot as a static marketplace? I've not heard of anyone that has had much success doing it. Only seen a couple people that have even really tried. So I did not list anything over there as a static fixed item. Yeah, if you're in the chat and you've tried that, let us know what your success has been. I know they offer it, but man, it's their whole shtick, all their marketing, their whole push is about the live selling, and the fixed marketplace seems really like an afterthought, that it's there if you choose to use it. But my impression from looking around is that it's not doing much. Kapow Eagle says, survey requests, can each seller list your accounting method, spreadsheet, Wave, QuickBooks, Xero, etc. This might help others. That's a good one. If you have an accounting software that you use, let us know in the chat or in the comments. Again, if you're on Team Replay, I'm using two, to be fair. I'm using Wave for the actual accounting piece, and I use I think it's called Canvas for a kind of inventory control software. So I know how many books I've got and how much I've paid for them. So I'm using two different programs. QuickBooks would probably allow me to do all of that, but Wave and Canvas are both free, which is my favorite price. And they both served my purposes when I was just starting out. And once I'd established how I was able to use them and found a workflow that gave me all the information that I needed come tax time and all that, it's just something that I've stuck with. I found both of them to be pretty comprehensive. I'm pretty happy with those. But yeah, definitely let us know in the chat or in the comments which ones you are using and why. Mary McQueen says to Den, tried it, didn't have any success, so she pulled everything down. I assume you're talking about the Whatnot static marketplace. Carla says, I heard Whatnot can become very addictive. I talked about it. It's probably been a few months ago, that the average buyer on Whatnot is buying like 11 items a week or something crazy like that. I mean, they are really spending, they're buying a lot of items. I don't know that they're necessarily spending a lot of money because a lot of Whatnot is like the $1 start and ends up being the $1 sale. But they're buying a lot of stuff. There are, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Their users on Whatnot are spending more time per week on the platform than users on Instagram. It is running behind TikTok, but I would guess that is probably gaining on TikTok as well. I've seen other sellers, Fundamentals is using it to do like live interviews. So he's not even doing a sale. He does do sales as well, but he's using it as kind of a YouTube live platform to stream kind of that type of content. So there are multiple ways to use Whatnot, kind of even beyond just doing the selling piece, which I thought was really interesting. Cameron says Whatnot seems like it's an addiction for some people. Yes, there are. Again, I can get on anytime, day or night. And if I look at a show, it will almost always tell me I have friends that are in that show. Mountain B, welcome. I don't think I've seen that name before. Thank you for coming out and for sharing. You use Flipwise. I've got a couple people that I've seen comment on Facebook that use that. Mel says, I use a Google spreadsheet from Etsy for bookkeeping and separate Google spreadsheet for inventory. And I talked about it a few weeks ago. I actually have a Google spreadsheet that I initially enter all my information into to consolidate it into a form that's easier then for me to enter into Wave than to try to capture that information directly from eBay. And it also allows me an opportunity to double check all my math and all my fat fingering of numbers, because I've got to put all that stuff in twice and I can find errors. But I do have a spreadsheet as well that shows me at the end of my shipments what I've spent in fees, what I've spent in promo fees, what I've spent in shipping, what I'm paying in what was collected and remitted on my behalf in terms of sales tax, how much money I made. So that really helps give me a quick snapshot of what today looks like without having to run a report in the actual accounting software. And then I just transfer all that over to Wave and get on with my day. Recommerce Dave, with lives, a key factor is being consistent with your show's time slot appearance. I've seen when someone becomes inconsistent with their time slot, the audience drops away quickly. And I would guess that that's probably true. They talk about it with YouTube and with podcasting as well. Have a schedule. My show always comes out Monday morning at 5 a.m. My lives are always Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. And you establish that pattern of behavior. If you're inconsistent, it's, to be fair, it's true with everything. If you're inconsistent in what you do, you're going to get inconsistent results. Probably for me, changing from the evening to the morning was not the best move for me to make. But it was a decision that I made for myself personally, that I decided I wasn't trying to give up those 2 evenings a week anymore. So I wanted to move them into the daylight hours, into kind of my working schedule. And ultimately that has not really worked out, but you live and you learn. And as again, going full circle, you evaluate what it is you're doing, and then you have to make some decisions on what you want to do going forward. Then Decor Depot says uses an Excel sheet, although it's now $9.99 a month for Office. I've built a forecasting model on a tab. There you go. That's interesting. Media Picker, ever since I told you eBay was slow for me, it's now been on fire. You must be good luck. There you go. I'm glad it's picked up. eBay, to be fair, has been super inconsistent. Yesterday I did maybe 8 sales throughout the day, and then overnight I did 16. So just very strange. Brian Henry, good morning, my friend. Good morning from the Pacific Northwest. In late, so team replay today. That's a big team replay. Den Decor Depot says the Shopify angle is I can cross-list there, then post out from Shopify to TikTok Shop and Facebook Marketplace. So there you go. That gives you additional tools where you get the opportunity to get those items promoted and out in front of more people than just trying to drive folks specifically to your Shopify store. So that is helpful to know. Thank you for that. Lindy Moo, welcome. Flipwise, there's 2 votes for Flipwise. The other thing I'm trying to learn more about is using AI to do different coding things for Shopify as well. I've not spent much time looking at, like, when you build a Shopify store, what that store looks like, but I would assume that if you knew code, you could create a much more unique looking store than whatever their templates probably look like. Media Picker says schedule helps. I have new videos on my YouTube channel dropping at 6 a.m. on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. There you go. And again, people get in the habit. If I miss a show and haven't said, like, in advance, hey, I'm going out sourcing or doing whatever on a particular day, I'll get messages in my DMs over on Instagram at Galaxy CDs Rocks for anybody that's interested, that ask, is everything okay? Are you not, what happened? Why was there no show this week? We missed your show this week. So people get in the habit of knowing this thing is going to happen at these times. And they talk about having like 1,000 true fans, how, in YouTube world or whatever it is. If you can have 1,000 people that are committed to what you're doing, your YouTube channel, your Instagram, and they're willing to participate, support, share, make financial contributions, use your affiliate links or whatever, that's kind of the ticket to being able to make some kind of income off of these things. And I think that is obviously what you're finding with your YouTube channel. Obviously not yet to that level because it's a newer channel, but you're finding that people are showing up because they know that these things are going to be here at that time. And if you can build that 1,000 true fans, you have an opportunity to have a successful channel, in my opinion. To be self-employed, a schedule is very important. You must be organized. 100%. I think I talked about it a few weeks ago. A friend of mine, that he was working for someone else, but he was working from home. And he quickly realized he didn't make it 45 days doing that. He quickly realized that he did not have the self-discipline to not be in a structured office environment. He just couldn't stay on task. The dogs, the kids, the whatever, and he was constantly being distracted, and it was impacting his ability to do his job. So he went and ended up leaving that company altogether because they did not have an office. They were strictly work from home, and he just couldn't do it. Not everybody can do this for a variety of reasons, but that is a big one. If you are self-employed, whether you just have that self-discipline innately, or you have to do what I do, and set out goals every week on a list that you have to check off every week to keep yourself on task, whatever it is, you've got to find some way to hold yourself accountable to do the things you need to do, or you're going to end up in a bad spot very, very quickly. Den Decor Depot says, thanks for the hour. It's time to sell. That seems like a good opportunity to remind you, if you're not currently a subscriber here on the YouTube channel, please consider doing that. I do also offer memberships. They're like $4.99 a month, I think, for the membership. And you do get the podcast, the Monday podcast, early, in addition to a priority response to any questions you leave me, but I'm pretty good about answering everything anyway. Please feel free to share this with anybody else. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button today, please do that as well to let YouTube know this was a good use of everyone's time. With that, my friends, we are at that hour mark. I know people have got a lot to do, so let's get to it. Thank you again for coming out. And now, as he said, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.